In these challenging times, it's important to talk about choices. One way of doing so is to support organizations that bring vital issues and the people who are thinking about them to you. To keep these voices alive, won't you please consider making a donation to the Carnegie Council's annual fund? Your donation will directly support programs such as a video you are about to watch. It's easy. Visit carnegiecouncil.org and click on the button marked support. You'll be glad you did. Thank you.
I want to talk to you about 3 issues quickly that I think you should be aware of in human trafficking. One we've talked about, subtle coercion. People are not always held in forced labor by beatings. Psychological manipulation, emotional manipulation can be just as coercive as physical force, and we see that, and the law addresses it. Second, these cases all have victims who are human beings who have been traumatized. And that calls us to have a sort of what we call a victim-centered approach to these prosecutions. And in that victim-centered approach has really 3 parts. 1, undocumented victims get immigration status to remain in the United States. What they're doing really is helping with the prosecution, but they also get a work permit. 2, they get refugee benefits, meaning that they're treated like refugees. They get subsistence, housing, things like that. And 3, as I said before, they get work permits. So that they can start putting their lives back together and start working and trying to have a life where they're in control of their labor. They're in control of their lives, not the human trafficker who's engaging in forced labor. Third, it's a complex crime. These crimes take place not in an instant, like a robbery, but over months and over years. And the exploitation and the breaking down of the will and the violence, like you've just heard about from Ms. Suarez, takes place time and time and time again. And the impact of that repeated traumatization is enormous. So we have to respond understanding that these people are traumatized, they may be undocumented, they may be indebted, there are financial crimes going on at the same time, and this complex crime requires an integrated and holistic response. And what we've done in the United States is we've formed 42 human trafficking task forces around the United States that are funded, and there's many more unfunded. And they bring together the prosecutors and the police officers and the non-governmental organizations, the nonprofit groups, and the Department of Labor and other agencies. Before the crime happens, everybody is on the team and knows what to do, and so that when we find a victim, we can address the crime in a holistic way by both providing victim services and by prosecuting the case. Finally, I'll just close by listing kind of 4, I think, next steps. One is we've got to reach rural America. You know, we can sit here and talk to people in the cities of the United States, and we do see human trafficking here, and we see a lot of sex trafficking. But we need to get out into the countryside where migrant farm workers are working and living and educate people there. 2, we need to look at our H-2A, H-2B visa programs and our other visa programs that I think are bringing people into the United States legally but can be prone to exploitation, especially by, as Mr. Plant said, fraudulent recruiters charging huge fees to get people indebted. 3rd, civil suits. I don't think we can rely on this being this being a problem that's resolved only by criminal prosecution. I think in addition to criminal prosecution, we need an aggressive civil enforcement program. And there are civil laws out there that allow trafficking victims to sue in civil court for money damages if they're human traffickers. And I would love to see a civil law movement rise up like the Southern Poverty Law Center did in combating the Ku Klux Klan in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And then finally, 4th, we have to recognize that forced labor is not this little incident that just happens, a blip out there. It is a point toward the end of a spectrum of labor exploitation. That behind every wage and hour complaint or occupational safety and health act complaint, behind cases of visa fraud and these sort of lesser crimes are activities that can promote and lead to human trafficking. And we have to be working and cognizant of that entire spectrum of labor exploitation, because the workers who are put in horrible conditions, who aren't paid fairly, who are gotten into debt, who are here with unlawful documents, are being softened up and that when they come across a trafficker, they're more vulnerable to that exploitation, and we see that all the time.